Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. This is BimbyNation.com back here with another video, guys. Welcome back to week 2 Analytics Predictions, where we take a look at every single game. This is where we get to break into every single game. We get to tell you guys what we're gonna break every game down. We're gonna give you guys my my final score, picks against the spread, and the over and under, and those are my records right there. So make sure you guys take a look at that. But anyway, if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. Make sure you guys join the Discord, links in the description, and follow me on Twitch. I'm really28, so you guys don't miss any future stream. Make sure you guys as well go check out our content. We have a good content listed for today. Also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'll double check here again, but if I'm not mistaken, I do think the Commanders versus Packers game is winning on the vote off right now for we're going to watch this week together. So if you guys haven't voted on that, make sure you guys please do so. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys for voting. So yeah, Packers and Commanders are winning for right now. So if that does hold, we will be live tonight for Commanders versus Packers. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get it going. Regular picks record 11-5. I'm not complaining, but I think I could have done a little bit better. Spread picks record 8-8. I gotta do a little bit better. Listen, it is week 1. Spread picks are probably the hardest thing to do on here, so I'm not surprised. And then over and under, I just gotta do better, man. I mean, 5-11. I mean, that's terrible. I think I just gotta do better on that. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this, and let's see everything that I have for week 2. Alright, so first things first, we're kicking things off here with Thursday Night Football. Of course, we have Washington at Green Bay. I'm pretty sure you guys can tell, this is the first award of the day, and I know there's not going to be a lot of times that Thursday Night Football is going to be the first award of the day. But if you guys are with me on this one, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody is. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is. Even though you guys can probably guess what this award is. This is by far this week's best game of the week. Like I said, I think this game's the best game of the week. I think this game is going to be pretty damn entertaining, and I look at the schedule and I find this game the best one there is of the week, which is absolutely killing it in the vote off right now. But anyway, for this game, I'm gonna go 27-24. I'm gonna go with Green Bay wearing those alternate white uniforms at home here. This one was tricky as well. This was kind of in contention for my trickiest game of the week, also my best game of the week here. But I decided to go best game of the week. But I think that we could go either way. Like I said, if this game was in DC, I probably would go with Washington because they got that attack. They looked pretty good last week against the Giants on both sides of the ball. Maybe not so much offensively, but they looked pretty damn good defensively. James Daniels, I know we already know who's going to get out of him. Deebo Samuel actually looked pretty damn good last week, so I'm very curious of what that's going to look like for him. The running game looked excellent out of Washington last week, so Washington's offense just looked great, and their defense looked great too. They only held the Giants to, what was it, only 8 points, something like that. Meanwhile, for Green Bay, they looked good too. They shellacked the Lions, and let's just call it what it is. So we just have to admit that was an ass whooping. Let's just call it what it is. It was a plain and simple ass whooping. They really only allowed 6 points, but they allowed 13 because Detroit scored a touchdown late at garbage time in the game. But anyway, in this one, like I said, I'm expecting this one to be a thriller. I think we're going to see some good stuff out of the running game for both teams, all led by Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs. I think we're going to see some good quarterback play out of Jordan Love and James Daniels, so I'm very excited for this matchup in general. Both receivers, Green Bay does have some questions receiver wise about like Wicks, Romeo Doubs, stuff like that. Green Bay does have some questions that they're probably going to have to answer eventually on that, but I'm not going to lean for that now. So I'm going to take 24-27. I'm going to lean towards Green Bay being the home team here on Thursday Night Football, so that's why I got Green Bay minus 3.5, even though that could be a little tricky. But at the end of the day, I'm going to lean towards Green Bay there. And at over 48.5, I feel pretty good about that. Like, so this game could go either way. It could be a defensive game because both of these two teams have good defenses, or it could be an offensive game. But I'm going to lean more towards an offensive game, so that's why I'm going to lean towards the over. But that one could go either way. But anyway, like I said, I'm trying to do a little bit better on over and under this week. But like I said, I'm kind of expect this one to be close, entertaining game. Hopefully we do watch this one on Thursday Night Football together, but at the end of the day, I'm going to lean towards the Packers getting the slight edge here because they're the home team. All right, next up here we got Jacksonville taking on against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Jaguars looked pretty damn good last week. Like in the big show, they shellacked the Panthers. They looked really good while doing that. Their defense looked really good against the Panthers. Their offense looked versatile. It looked alright, even though it had its low show share moments sometimes, but their offense looked alright. Maybe looking at Cincy, Cincy played exactly how we would expect Cincy to play. They were coming off a little suspicious win against the Browns. They only beat them by 1 point, and when you only beat Cleveland by 1 point, okay, that actually means something. But in this game, I'm gonna go with Cincy 2023. I think this is gonna be a pretty damn entertaining game too. Jacksonville, like I said, they looked pretty good last week. Travis Hunter looked pretty good in his debut. Trevor Lawrence looked alright. He looked alright. He kind of made his bonehead mistakes a little bit, but overall he didn't play that bad. Travis Etienne, I thought he was fantastic. Now I did see that they traded Tank Bisbee. I don't know why they did that, but it's whatever. Anyway, looking at Cincinnati, like I said, their offense looked a little suspicious last week. Joe Burrow didn't really play as good as he wanted to last week, but they got the win, which is mainly important for the Bengals because they have a history with starting off slow. So, but for this one though, I'm gonna go with Cincy 2023. Like I said, I think this is gonna be a pretty entertaining game. I think this is gonna be one of those games that we see Cincinnati's offense expect to be Cincinnati's offense, like for them to be throwing the ball all over the place. And pretty sure Jacksonville's defense was pretty decent last week, so there is a chance that Jacksonville to get in their heads a little bit. Maybe they don't score enough points as expected, but yeah, like I said, I do think Jacksonville can score on Cincinnati because anybody can score on Cincinnati's defense. I'm not going to look at week 1 to say, oh my gosh, that Cincinnati's defense is like they were so impressive. No, I'm not going with that route yet. But I will say that Jacksonville's offense, how they played last week, they can definitely score on Cincinnati's defense, and I actually do think Jacksonville has a decent chance of winning this game. But I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with the Bengals, especially being at home. Their home opener. Which kind of it's scaring me a little bit because last year the Bengals lost to the Patriots in their home opener, so that's still stuck in my head from last year. So I'm kind of like, but at the same time I have more confidence about Cincinnati, so I'm gonna go with them in this game. The spread picks, I feel really good about taking the over in this game, 48.5, because like I said, this can go either one or two ways. But like I said, I think Jacksonville can score because Cincinnati's defense so bad. But like I said, I'm kind of expecting like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. I'm kind of expecting them all getting motion this week. I think this week is really gonna see what the Jacksonville's defense really is and what kind of team they are just in general. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go with Cincinnati being at home in their home opener. Cincinnati minus 3.5. That could be a little bit tricky too, but I think I'm just gonna lean more towards Cincinnati to cover that spread. But that was a little tricky though. Like I said, I gotta do better against the spread this week. I thought it was pretty bad, but overall, like I said, I'm kind of expecting this game to be entertaining. We'll see what Jacksonville's team really is about. But 23-28 final. I have Cincinnati taking care of business at home. Alright, next up here we have my Los Angeles Rams taking on against the Tennessee Titans. I'm gonna lean towards the Rams on this one, 24-13. And here's the reason why. Listen, the Rams offense, okay, I'm not a biased fan. I will say this. The Rams offense was a little off target last week. Like they didn't look specifically as good as I wanted them to look. But here's a good thing. Their defense absolutely did. They absolutely dominated the Texans last week. And that was the defensive side of the ball. And that was really one thing I was looking at. Like the Rams defense looked really good. The Rams defense looked like one of the best defensive teams in football last week. They looked great. Meanwhile, for Tennessee, you can say the exact same thing. Their offense didn't look... It didn't look as versatile, but it didn't look sloppy. It just looked kind of like mid, I guess. But their defense absolutely dominated. Their defense, and I was impressed with Tennessee overall last week. They hung around with Denver, and it looked pretty good. Tennessee didn't look too bad at that. But when you look at the Rams, like I'm kind of expecting them to bounce back a little bit more offensively. Even though I do think the Rams did have some good offensive moments in that win over the Texans. They need to score more points on the board, and that's what I'm doing this week. So I thought about, I was like, I can easily predict like this is a game like to easily predict a Rams blowout, like 28, like 30-13, something like that. I could predict that, but I'm gonna be real here. I'm gonna give a lot. I'm giving a lot of credit to Tennessee's defense here, and I do think that the Rams will score more points. But at the same time, Tennessee's defense did not look that bad. Matter of fact, that's their strongest suit of that team is their defense. It's not their offense, because their offense is terrible. That's why they haven't scored 13 points. But the bad news is for Tennessee is that you just played Denver in the Mile High City, right? And you played pretty well, right? But at the same time, your offense had to play against Denver defense. This week you're playing against the Rams defense, who is about as good as Denver is, or which is about almost that same tier as Denver. So at the same time, this it's just rough for me to pick Tennessee, man, because like I said, their defense will keep them in the game. At the same time, their offense is playing against two really good defensive teams in back-to-back weeks, and I know this is their home opener, but man, the more I think about it, I was like, man, I don't know if I can pick Tennessee. I don't know if I can do it, because they're playing against all of these good defensive teams. So hopefully they do get a break next week. I do not know who they play next week, but that's why I got 24-13. Like I said, I'm expecting the Rams to score a little bit more. I'm expecting Kyron Puka Nacua was awesome last week. Devontae Adams, I kind of expect them three to all keep going. Tennessee, like I said, I am going to see, and I am interested to see what Cam Ward is going to do against our defense, but at the same time, this just feels like a game. I'm actually feeling really good about this undertake here, under 41.5. I'm actually feeling pretty good about that, because I just don't think that it's going to be that big of a shootout game. I don't think each team's going to get the 41 points. I think it's going to be, like I said, 24-13, and that's just about it. And then I'm going to take the Rams, obviously, to cover that spread. Like I said, pretty good about that. But yeah, even though Tennessee's home opener, they're playing against two tough defenses in back-to-back weeks. I like the Rams to take care of business here, 24-13 on the road. Alright, next up we have the Dolphins at the... Hold on, let me backtrack here. Next up we got the Patriots at the Dolphins. Listen, this game could be very interesting. It could go back and forth. It could be a mess, but both of these two teams did not look that good last week. And yes, I know we do have another award coming out here, but this one could go either way. I kind of thought about back and forth with this award, but let's just go ahead and call it what it is. I think both of these two teams looked awful last week. The Patriots didn't look as bad, but at the same time, they lost to the Raiders, and they did not look impressive while doing that. And then the Dolphins looked like complete shit, and the Dolphins looked like one of the worst teams, and not the worst team in football last week. They're a pretty embarrassment over the Indianapolis Colts. Let's go ahead and call it what it is. I'm actually going to call this the 1 point game of the week. Like I said, out of the schedule, I think this is the matching fit for the 1 point game of the week here. But I got 21-20. Normally the Dolphins do have the edge over the Patriots when they're playing at home, and that's kind of been the history between the two teams. But I'm feeling pretty good about the Dolphins this game. I know the Dolphins, like I said, they look like one of the worst teams in football last week. Their offense couldn't do anything. Tua was turning over the football. The running game couldn't get going. Tyreek Hill, A-Chain, none of them could get going. It was just a complete... Defense was horrible. It was just an absolute disaster class. What we saw of the Dolphins last week. But remember, guys, remember what I said last week about the Dolphins playing good early on in the season? That's mainly at home. They don't really play that good on the road. Well, normally the Dolphins are not really a road team. I probably should have said that last week. But the Dolphins are pretty damn good at home early on in the year. So I'm kind of expecting Miami to have that advantage, kind of have the home field advantage. I don't think the Dolphins are as bad as we saw last week. Like I said, I'm not going to overlook week one and just say, oh my god, okay, that's the team, that's what the kind of team they are. No, I'm not going to lean towards that. I think this Dolphins team is much better than that, even though I do think the Patriots are probably the better roster team right now, but they didn't look as good either last week against the Raiders. Honestly, the Patriots kind of disappointed me last week, but I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins here in a 1 point affair, 21-20, and I'm glad the spread is only 1.5, because if the spread wasn't at 1.5, then I was going to have to take New England with the points, but man, like I said, this one wasn't an easy pick either, because both of these two teams look so bad. But when both teams look pretty ugly, I think you just have to go with the home team in this situation. So if this game was in New England, I probably would take the Patriots. But it's in Miami. Miami early on in the season, they play a lot better at home. So I'm hoping that right here. I'm just going with my gut with this pick. Like I said, this one could go either way, but I am feeling pretty good about the under 43.5. I don't think we'll get to that. I think Both offenses are going to have to take some time to wake up, especially after last week. But I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins being at home here. Like, so I'm kind of expecting it to be a close game, close squeaker here. But I'm going to lean towards the Dolphins being the home team in this situation. Alright, next up we got the Bills at the Jets, and both of these two teams looked electric offensive last week. Bills coming off one of the most impossible wins I think we ever seen in NFL history. Coming back from 15 down to somehow find a way to win that game. That was absolutely incredible. And if I'm being honest, this game was pretty close from being the best game of the week. I'm not gonna lie, because the Jets looked pretty damn good offensively last week too. Like I said, they threw up 32 points. I know they lost, but they looked pretty damn good offensively. But with this game here, I think this one could go back and forth. Like I said, if the Jets, I'm not really seeing the Jets as a week one offensive team. Like all of a sudden they're just really good of an offense. But I will say that Justin Fields looked pretty damn good last week. The whole offense looked good last week. The whole offense looked awesome for the Jets. At the same time, like, can you really expect, like, this one was kind of like one of the harder ones to predict the score on, because both these teams were electric offensively. You know, they scored back and forth. Both teams were amazing offensively last week, but at the same time, both the same thing. Well, not really for the Jets. The Jets were not really known for their offense; they're known for their defense. So I'm kind of expecting week 2 to be. I mean, week 2 could be like just as weird as week 1, but maybe the Jets' offense does slow down here a little bit, and that's my kind of worrying concerns. But I'm going to give the Jets 23 points because the Bills' defense was awful last week. Matter of fact, these two teams are similar because both teams' defenses looked like shit last week. Both teams' defenses looked awful. But at the end of the day, I'm going to lean towards the Bills. Like I said, they got the MVP and Josh Allen. The Bills defense didn't really look that good last week, but I'm kind of expecting them to, fix it a little bit. Like, this is not the Ravens offense, so I think as long as they clean up their defense a little quickly here, I think they'll be just fine. And so I'm going to go with the Bills here, getting the job done on the road, 34-23. Listen, kind of a shootout here. But at the same time, this is like kind of one of those games that I kind of expect to be a shootout because both teams were awesome offensively last week. Now the Bills do have some injury concerns. I heard that James Cook popped up on the questionable report, so we'll see about that. I am curious to see I am really going to be looking forward to this game, which defense steps up. And I think whoever defense steps up first here is going to win the game. And my answer here is the Bills. So that's why I'm going to take the Bills here on the road. I'm not too comfortable with this pick or score predictions or anything like that. Anything with over and under, I'm not too comfortable about it with this game. Buffalo -6. I can easily see the Jets covering this. Like I can see it, but I'm going to lean towards the veteran experience and Josh Allen to get the job done here. Even though the Jets, this is their second week on back at home, but I just don't see a scenario how they win. And then over 46.5. Like I said, this one could go either way. This could be a defensive game or an offensive game. I'm going to lean towards offense, so that's why I took the over 46.5. And like I said, you might look at that score and be like, oh my gosh, like you really think it's going to blast it? I don't think they're going to blast it, but I think they're going to be somewhere near around. But anyway, at the end of the day, I trust Josh Allen more. I love their offense. Even though the Jets offense was pretty damn good last week too, I'm going to lean towards the Bills and the veteran experience for them to get the job done here on the road. Alright, next we have the Browns at the Ravens, and holy shit. As I'm pretty sure you guys can already know, this is this week's ass beating of the week, because why not? This is just what this is. Now, Cleveland's defense did look pretty good last week. I'm not going to take that away from them. Their defense looked pretty damn good last week, and I'll give the Browns all the credit in the world in that. But at the same time, you're playing against this. Like, you're playing against this offense who nearly just threw up 40 points last week against the Bills. So even though they're coming off in the loss, I don't see Cleveland really doing too much of anything here, to be completely honest. I don't think Joe Flacco, he's going to be under a shitload of pressure. Like, I'm kind of expecting Baltimore to be Baltimore, like completely Baltimore, like a really good defensive team followed by a really good offensive team. Baltimore's defense was terrible last week, but like I said, I understand it. You're going into a really good offense too, so I'll give him a pass on that. But at the same time, this should be an ass whooping. Like, this game should not be close one bit. Baltimore -11.5. I kind of hesitated about this one, honestly, but I'm going to lean towards because, like I said, I'm kind of expecting this one to be a beating. I'm not really expecting. Normally, you see spreads like you just want to get away from that spread. You just want to go with whoever's the underdog by in that case. And I completely understand. Like I think that's a possibility, but I think the Ravens are just substantially better than the Cleveland Browns. So as long as they play in their game, I think they should be fine. So I'm going to lean towards Baltimore in that one. Over 44.5. I know you have to explain about that. Honestly, I think Baltimore has a chance of getting that on their own. So this game here, like I said, I'm gonna pick the Ravens here, 38-10. Like I'm not expecting this game to be close at all. Like I said, for the Ravens, they should be pissed anyway. That game against Buffalo last week, they know they threw that win away, and they gave it right to Buffalo. So yeah, the Ravens are coming back home. They're going to be pissed off about that last game, and I'm just kind of expecting to put belt the ass on the Browns. So 38-10. Like I said, not expecting this game to be close. Baltimore all the way, being a home opener. I'm just not really expecting too much here at Cleveland. I don't know what their game plan is going to be going in. So, like I said, this is this week's ass meeting of the week. Baltimore should be pissed off. They should be ready for revenge. And honestly, I do think that they should be able to get the job done here at home, playing against their division rival. But like I said, division rival games, you never know. It's the NFL. It gets crazy sometimes. But this one, I'm just feeling confident about it. Baltimore should be able to win this game pretty easily. Alright, next up we have the New York Giants facing against the Dallas Cowboys. I got the Cowboys winning this one 23-14. Listen, Russell Wilson did not look good last week. Okay, let's just call it what it is. He looked terrible last week. The Giants offense did not look good last week. Did not like what I saw of the Giants offense last week. It looked like abysmal. Even though their defense, I'll give credit to their defense. They played really well. They did what they could, but at the same time, I think the offense kind of let them down. It reminds me of like a defensive team that let their offense like the Steelers from last year. They're just reminding me of that. Like I said, their offense would just do whatever. The defense would just do whatever it takes, and their offense just completely lets them down because they have to go 3 and out all over the field again. But yeah, the Giants offense, they did not look good last week. You saw Malik Neighbors in frustration last week. It's just really hard to pick the Giants right now, man. Especially how bad that offense really is. And I know I'm giving their defense credit here. That's why I only got the Cowboys winning 23 points. I'll give their defense credit. Their defense played really well, but at the same time, Dallas has more weapons offensively. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Dak Prescott. Like they should be able to find a way to get the job done here at home. Like and Dallas does kind of scare me at home because they do have a history of letting bad teams roll into their house and beating their ass. So if you want to go back to last year, go ahead and do that. Or any team in general, they'll just let them come to their house and just tear their asses up. But this is a new year. This is a new Dallas Cowboys team. So I am going to pick them to win 23-14. Like I said, I give respect to that Giants defense. That's why I think they'll keep it somewhat close, a 2-score game. But at the same time, the Dallas is significantly the better offensive team here. This is another tough challenge for Russell Wilson. I do not think he's going to play well again this week. And you might have to get a change at a quarterback. Meanwhile, Giants will play one of the worst football teams in the league last week against the Commanders. They couldn't really do anything on that side of the ball. And then when you look at Dallas, they didn't play bad at all against the Eagles. Matter of fact, I was kind of impressed with Dallas, but yeah, I'm going to take a 23-14. I do think eventually they will win the game. I have no issues about that. Under 44.5, I'm feeling pretty good. Like I said, these are pretty decent defenses that want to go at it with each other, and I do think it'll be close throughout. So I'm actually feeling pretty damn good about the under. And in Dallas, minus 5.5. I mean, it could be a little risky. I think it just depends on where you want to go with it. Like if the line spreads like maybe 6.5, 7.5, maybe you do want to go with the with the Giants on that spread, because like I said, you do have to respect that defense, but their offense isn't really going to do anything on the football field. So just despite the Giants' good defense, I'm going to go with the Cowboys taking care of business here at home. Alright, next up we got the Bears taking on against the Detroit Lions. The Bears, what did I tell you guys about the Bears last week? The Bears, But let's be honest, the Bears had no. If you want to talk about overall performances, yes, the Bears had the better performance than the Detroit Lions last week, and that's absolutely fair. You can absolutely say that. But at the same time, the Bears had an easier opponent than the Detroit Lions, or I should say, I think that's kind of fair. Even though people are probably gonna get roasted in the comments for that, but at the end of the day, that's fair. They had an easier opponent. But anyway, for Chicago Bears, like I said, I just don't trust their team. I just don't. They're the most confusing team in the NFL. They continue to be confusing. They should have won that game last week. Like, when I think of the Bears, I think of the Ravens. Like I said, there were two teams in the league last week who just had to win and just threw it away to the other team, and that was the Ravens and the Bears. You can say the exact same thing about the Bears, because the Bears defense looked good. They did look good. Like the first half of the game, they were killing the Vikings. I think they had like a 17-point lead at one point, and then all of a sudden, the defense did not show up for the rest of the game. Their offense didn't look good, and ended up handing the win right to the Vikings. So yeah, that is that. I mean, we look at Detroit. Detroit got smacked around a little bit by the Green Bay Packers, and this is a Ben Johnson revenge game. So question, can he get his revenge? I'm gonna say no. Like I said, I do not trust this Bears team, and no matter what they do, and the Bears are actually banged up. I don't know how. Who's the one that got injured on the floor last week? I think that was DJ Moore, the one who got injured last week. So I don't know what his thing is going to be. Maybe I'll look at Detroit. I'm kind of expecting Detroit to bounce back here offensively. I mean, as a team, I'm not expecting Detroit to bounce back. Defensively, offensively, I'm just kind of expecting Detroit to just get after it this week. So yeah, Sam Laporta did pretty good last week, but I'm expecting Gibbs to bounce back game. You can even say Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's gonna have a bounce back game. David Montgomery. Like, I'm kind of expecting this whole team in general to bounce back and just prove to us that the Lions are not this fall away team that's just not coming back down to earth to what they were like a couple years prior. So I'm gonna go Detroit. Like I said, I think Detroit has to make a statement here, and I do think they will win it at home, 27-17. Detroit minus 6.5. I'm not feeling too comfortable about that, but if you do want to go with that, I mean, I completely understand. But I think they'll win this game by 10, maybe not more than 10. Maybe the maximum they can win is by like 13. So yeah, I was ready to go 30-17, but I wanted to keep it a little bit realistic. So that way I went 27-17. But Detroit minus 6.5. I mean, that could be a little risky, but it depends on how you feel about it. And then under 46.5. I think that's too many points. Like I said, both of these two teams looked kind of a little shaky offensively, so I'm not going to lean towards that margin. But like I said, that's another risk. So, but if you want to go over, I completely understand with you. But I'm going to lean the Lions here, big at home. But despite the two risky picks down there, it could go either way. But at the same time, I think the Lions will bounce back as a team, as a whole, and I kind of expect them to get the job done here against the Bears. Alright, next up we have the Niners taking on against the New Orleans Saints. And listen, everybody's going to be looking at this game and saying like, oh my god, okay, yep, San Francisco's going to win this game. They're a much better team. I don't even care about on the road, and I do agree with you because I am picking the Saints here. I mean, I am picking the 49ers here as well. But basically what I've heard of is, and I'm going to get into it in a minute, but just what I heard of this morning, I think this is going to be my worst game of the week, because if the Niners were healthy, I do think that this wouldn't be the worst game of the week. But at the same time, like, you got to think, like, we just heard this morning that Brock Purdy is going to be out for weeks 2 through 5, I think, which is not a good sign for San Francisco. And they are already missing George Kittle, so that's already going to be a problem in itself. And when you have those two out, you're really got to rely on their stars. I don't even know who the 49ers backup quarterback is. I think it's Mac Jones, I think, last time I heard. So I don't know how he's going to play. I don't know how he's going to be. But the good news for San Francisco is that they're playing against the Saints, and the Saints are probably arguably the worst team in football right now. So I'm going to take the Niners here 20-13. Like that, I could easily predict the score to be lower than this. Like, now since Brock Purdy and George Kittle are out both, I can see this game being like 13-10, 17-13, something like that. But I'm going to lean towards 20-13. Like I said, San Francisco might have a little bit more offensive firepower than than the Saints do. So I'm gonna lean towards that. 2013. Like I said, Saints looked pretty good off defensively last week. They hung around with the Cardinals, which I was kind of not expecting that to happen, but they did. And then I'll give the Saints a little bit credit towards that. This is their second week at home, so maybe that has to do something with it. Maybe look at San Francisco, they're on the road for 2 straight weeks, so that could be a little tricky, especially, like I said, without Brock Purdy, without George Kittle. But I'm still going to lean towards them a little bit more. They still got CMC, so I still think they're going to be fine. They still got plenty of firepower over there. But I'm definitely take the under 40.5. I feel very comfortable about that. I can almost guarantee it. And then San Francisco minus 40.5. I really had to rethink about that again, but like I said, I think San Francisco should have at least more weapons in the tanks. So, even though the Saints look like one of the worst teams of football, I do think they should be able. I think the Niners should still be able to take care of business with the spread. And if you want to bet me under, I would do it. Bet me under in this one. But at the end of the day, I'm going to lean towards San Francisco here with their guys. So even with their guys being out, I still think San Francisco is good enough to be able to win this game. Alright, next up, Seahawks at Steelers. This is a weird score I have here for this game. I'm going to go 18-26, like I said, or 26-18. I kind of said that one backwards, but I think that this game is going to be weird, okay? This game is going to be, I can already feel it. This game is going to be weird as hell. But at the same time here, I like what I saw from Pittsburgh, especially offensively last week. Their offense looked pretty damn impressive, and I do want to say that. I want to get that off my chest. I would not expect anything like that out of this year, especially Aaron Rodgers led quarterback team. But hey, listen, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, he might have had the best performance out of the quarterback in week 1. That's not an argument. They're right there with like Daniel Jones and stuff like that. But anyway, the point is that the Steelers, they looked awesome offensively, and I was not expecting that one bit. Maybe looking at Seattle, they look kind of sloppy offensively. Maybe that's just a week 1 thing. Maybe it's like, okay, we probably need to just take week 1 to get together and just know who you are right now. But Seattle, I do think Seattle's a good defense, and I do think they will pressure the Steelers here a little bit. So I am kind of off with the score here, but I got a weird score, 26-18. Like I said, it's not anything that I would bet on for this game, especially now. If you do want to bet on something, bet on the over 39.5. I feel comfortable about that. I think both teams should be able to get that. But for minus 2.5, I feel pretty good about that too. This is Pittsburgh's home opener. They're going to be playing at home in this game against the Seahawks, so I feel pretty good about Pittsburgh covering that 2.5. But listen, the Steelers did offensive last week. DK Metcalf looked like he had a good role in this team. I like what I saw of Aaron Rodgers. I like what I saw. Not too much out of the defense, I will say that, but I do think, like I said, week 1's a fluke. I do not think all this stuff is going to happen. Week 1 is messy. In the beginning of the season, it's still messy. So I am kind of expecting that Steelers defense to kind of act like more of the Steelers defense that we all know and love. And I do think, I'll get a little specific here. I do think the Steelers defense will win in this game, not the offense. I think the defense will win in this game. Even though Seattle does have some good weapons too, like Jackson Smith, they still have Cooper Kupp and all that stuff. So they still have good weapons, but I just don't think they don't have enough weapons as Pittsburgh does here. So I'm gonna go 26-18. I'm gonna lean towards Pittsburgh in this game. Like I said, definitely bet the over in this game in the 2.5. But I do think Seattle will hang around the game, and I do think they'll keep it 1 score. It's kind of like the same situation last week for Seattle. I just think they'll barely fall short, but I'm kind of expecting a good game out of these two. Alright, next up we have Denver at Indianapolis. Listen, say what you want to say, but the Colts, they looked amazing last week. They torched the Dolphins. They looked like one of the best teams in football last week. Their offense looked good. Their defense looked good. As a team in general, they just looked good, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, that was probably one of the most impressive wins I think I've seen in week 1. But at the same time, they're going to be playing against this Denver defense. I do not know how that's going to work out for them. Denver, as we know and love, they're definitely one of the best defensive teams, one of the best defensive units in the NFL, and they did pretty damn good on Tennessee last week. So even though the Colts are coming off of an amazing win, don't get me wrong, Colts are coming off of an incredible win against the Dolphins, and the Broncos did look a little suspicious. So if you want to look at it overall, the Colts definitely had the way better performance in week 1 against the Broncos, but at the same time, you got to look at it like, who do you really think is the better team? The Colts had to play against Miami's defense last week, and Miami's defense, it's okay, but it's just not the best in the world. This week they're going to be playing against the Broncos defense, and I do not know how Danny Dimes is going to be playing, and how he's going to play against that. Like I said, Denver, I kind of expect them to be one of the best defensive units in the NFL this season. So this game is really going to be curious who Indianapolis really is, and how their defense is going to be, and how their offensive teams against a really good defense like Denver. But I'm going to go 27-21. I'm going to lean here towards Denver in this one. Like I said, I can see Indiana, and I can see Indianapolis fighting, and I do believe that their offense showed enough skill last week to at the point that I can see them. I am going to make them fight. In 27-21, I think it's a good score for this one. But like I said, Broncos, they looked a little suspicious last week. I want to see a little bit more out of their offense. Bo Nix did not play that well last week. The Denver offense just in general did not play that good last week. So I think that, like I said, Indianapolis does look like the better team going into this matchup based off last week, but I'm not gonna fall for that. Like I say, it's this early week NFL sloppiness. Like I said, week 1, week 2, week 3 is weird, and I think by week 4 we start seeing teams really being who they are. So like I said, I'm gonna go with Denver in this one, 27-21. No regards, I do think this would be a great game. I think it'll be close, but I'm going to lean towards the team that I know and love, who I think is better. So I'm going to lean towards the Broncos on this one. I'm going to take the over 42.5 on this one. Like I said, both teams got some offensive firepower on their belt. So, and I do think the Colts will score at some points in the draft. So I'm going to lean towards that. And then Denver -2.5. I'm feeling pretty good about that. But like I said, even though I do see Indianapolis fighting with Danny Dimes, they looked pretty good last week. Jonathan Taylor looked pretty good last week. But I'm going to lean towards Denver because we kind of expect them to be the better team in this situation. Alright, next we have the Cardinals taking on against the Carolina Panthers here. This game is really weird, and the only reason I say really weird is because anything can happen in this game. I mean, anything can happen, but I'm going to lean towards the Cardinals here, 28-17. I got 11-point win for the Cardinals. Now, if you look at this game should probably feel like, oh my god, the Arizona Cardinals, they should absolutely dominate this game. They got a good defense now. Their offense looked, even though it didn't look the best last week, but I would say that they did enough for them to win the game. Everybody's going to look at this game and be like, Arizona, this is the game you need to win. And I do agree with that. And Arizona has to win this game. Like, if you want to compete for playoff positioning, Arizona, you have no ton of fooling around, especially in the division that you're in. You have no ton of fooling around. Like, you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and one of those teams is the teams that you're playing this week in Carolina. And the only reason why I say it that way is because Carolina did not look good at all last week. Bryce Jones did not look good, or that offense did not look good, the receivers did not look good. Nothing looked good at Carolina's offense last week. So even though in week 1, just a week ago, I was kind of expecting Carolina to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL from last season, because they ended up last year so strong. But it just felt like last week everything just came back down to earth for them. But so yeah, even though I do have Carolina scoring 17 points, because Arizona's not the most consistent team in the world, and I do think there will be chances where Bryce Young maybe gets down the field, kicks a couple of field goals in drive. I just don't think it's going to be enough to take down the Arizona Cardinals, who has plenty of offensive talent, and Carolina's defense is still pretty damn miserable. So I think, especially in their rush defense, I looked at the rush defense last week. It was pretty rough and looked like just about the teams last year. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards Arizona. This one, I think James Conner has a big night caliber. Should be able to make some plays off his legs. Marvin Harrison. I just think the Cardinals, they just have more offensive weapons, and I just don't know how Carolina's defense is really going to obtain all these offensive weapons that Arizona provides. So like I said, 28-17. I do see Carolina scoring, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take down the Cardinals because their defense is so bad. Over 43.5, I will go over about that. I'm feeling pretty confident about it. And Arizona -6.5, even though that one could be a little suspicious, I probably would lean more towards Arizona, because like I said, more of their offensive threats, more of Carolina's defense is still bad. I think I'm feeling more comfortable about taking Arizona, even though it could go either way. I think I'm more comfortable about taking Arizona by 6.5. But like I said, if Arizona falls this game, it would be kind of like a missed opportunity, because beat the teams you're supposed to beat in your division is a tough division. So this is a game that you need to win. Arizona, you should be able to take care of business here. Alright, next thing we got the Super Bowl rematch here. We got the Eagles taking on against the Kansas City Chiefs and Arrowhead. Oh my god, man. I was going back and forth with this game, trying to figure out who's healthy, who's not healthy. As this recording, I still do not know who's healthy and who's not healthy, so that's kind of scaring me off even more. Which is because I think I'm just giving it away by just me saying this is scary, this is scary. This is my final award of the week. This is the final award of the week. Yes, it is. This is this week's trickiest game of the week because I actually find this game hard. Now, the reason why I find this game hard, and yes, at the end of the day, I decided to stick with the Chiefs with this one, but the only reason I stuck with the Chiefs is because I just... even though the Eagles, okay, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. The Eagles are the better team, right? Everybody knows that the Eagles are the better team. The Super Bowl proved it. Everything just proved it, right? The Eagles are substantially the better team than the Chiefs, and I think that's fair. But that's why I have them scoring 23 points, and there's an even good chance that the Eagles do win this game. So I could go over here and pick the Eagles to cover the spread, even though I do have the Chiefs winning, but I just can't do that. I can't do that. If I pick an underdog, I have to pick them to win. So even what the spread is. So, but the Eagles, like I said, they're significantly the better team. I think everybody understands that, but I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here, man. Like I said, the Chiefs, they're at home. Remember, at Arrowhead, they were undefeated in Arrowhead last year. Yes, I know Xavier Worthy might not be playing. Yes, Rashee Rice is probably not playing this game yet. As a matter of fact, he's suspended, so he can't play. But I just think this is a game that if we're going to talk about this later on in the NFL season, it's situational football. It's just what teams they have to do. And when we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you can expect what we're going to see on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's really hard for me to predict, for me to actually think that the Chiefs are going to start 0-2 in the season. It's really hard. I just don't think it's going to happen. I refuse to believe it. Even though they're playing good and even though their defense looked a little suspicious last week, even though I know they're playing against a team that they just got their ass whooped by the Super Bowl. I just don't see a Chiefs starting 0-2. Like I'm just trying to picture it in just general. I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. I think it's gonna be one of the most shocking things in the world if it does happen. So, Chiefs, don't let me down. Like I said, this is a risky pick on my decision here. That's why if you guys haven't checked out yesterday's pick show, only me and Yeller went with the Chiefs on this one. But like I said, this one can go either way. I'm kind of taking a little gamble here, taking a little risk, but Chiefs, they're in this situation at home. Patrick Mahomes knows what he has to do. Andy Reid knows what he has to do. Plus, this is a revenge game for the Chiefs anyway. I think they step up and take this dub. So I'm going to take the over 46.5, and I'm going to take KC. Even though this is risky, I feel good about the over, but the KC plus 1.5 could be a little risky. Like I said, I'm kind of taking a little risk here, but knowing the situations, I'm going to go with KC defending home field, getting the Super Bowl revenge, and preventing them from starting 0-2. Alright, next up we have Sunday Night Football between the Falcons and the Vikings. I think this game is going to be a shootout, to be completely honest. I think this game is going to be fireworks all over the place. I'm kind of expecting both offenses to go off. Kind of like what I expected for Atlanta versus Tampa Bay game last week. I think both teams are going to go back and forth. I think this is going to be a shootout. I'm kind of expecting a lot of scoring here, but I do think the Vikings will make that one last play. Their defense, I can trust the Vikings defense. Atlanta defense, even though it looked pretty solid last week, I still don't know if I can trust it necessarily. So in this game, I do think it'll go back and forth. I think it'll be a great game, but I'm going to lean towards more of the Vikings, especially being in US Bank Stadium, which it's kind of like Arrowhead. It's one of the hardest stadiums to win an NFL game in. So my gut was just telling me Minnesota in this game, but like I said, I can see Atlanta winning this game either or. Like I said, if this game was in Atlanta, I could easily go with the Falcons here because the game will be in Atlanta, and I do think that will be in their advantage here. But I'm going to lean more towards Minnesota this game. Like I said, US Bank Stadium, they make that last play. Like the bank is somewhere where you don't want to be at if you're an away team. It's just not where you want to be at, right? It's one of the hardest teams to win an NFL game in. And even though JJ McCarthy, it's fair. He made somewhat mistakes. He did look a little sloppy there at the start. He got together, and when he got together, I thought he would have performed pretty damn well. So So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go Minnesota on this one. Even Michael Penix, he did look pretty good too. Like what I saw in Bijan, and I do think Minnesota's defense is going to be a little tested in this game because they are playing against a better offensive team this week. I just think they'll get the job done. Like I said, as long as JJ McCarthy plays well, I think the Vikings will play well, and I think that's what we saw last week. So like I said, when JJ McCarthy does not play well, the whole team don't play well. But when JJ McCarthy plays well, the whole team plays well, and I think we saw that. I think we saw an exact example of that from last week. So I'm going to take Minnesota in this game, 28-24. Like I'm kind of expecting this game to go back and forth. Should be entertaining all around. Lean towards the Vikings being at home. Atlanta plus 4.5. I'm actually feeling pretty good about that, even though it is a risk. But I'm feeling pretty good because, you know, Atlanta, they have a good chance of winning this game too. But I'm kind of expecting this game to go back and forth. And over 44.5, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, like I'm kind of expecting this one to be more of an offensive game. So I feel good about both positions, plus the spread and the over. I feel pretty good about that. But US Bank Stadium, Minnesota's defense making that final play. I just trust the Vikings more in the crunch time situation, so I'm gonna go with them. Alright, next up we have Monday Night Football, and we actually have two of them this week. And the first one here is an absolute banger. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into the Houston Texans. Whew, this is gonna be a good ass game. Okay, let me remind you something real quick. Tampa Bay's offense was good. It was good last week. Probably not what we expected because we kind of expected more out of their offense, but it looked pretty good. Last week on the win over in Atlanta, and Buccaneers, they were very clutch in the win over in Atlanta. I thought Buccaneers really showed their perseverance in that game, and it looked pretty damn good. Meanwhile, for Houston, their offense did not look good last week. I had some concerns with Houston's offense after that performance, and I know they were playing against a really good defensive team in the Rams, but at the same time, like I kind of expected the Texans to score more than 9 points against the Rams. Like I just wasn't expecting that at all. I was kind of expecting more. I was kind of expecting them to score like more like 17, 20, something like that, because they still have some tools on offense. They still have Nick Chubb, Nico Collins, C.J. Stroud, but the Rams defense did a really good job of holding them to. But at the same time, you're playing against a team like the Bucs, and the Bucs are really good at stopping the run. So even though Nick Chubb had some good touches last week, I don't think he's really gonna have no touch this week. Because Tampa Bay is really good against the run, and that's their strong suit on defense. But at the same time, I can see Houston scoring more points this week. So I was kind of back and forth in this game because I think Houston was so bad offensively that I could see them like throwing a whole bunch of points because they're coming back home as a primetime game. But I'm going to lean towards the Bucs in this game. Like I said, the Bucs are the team I trust more right now. With their clutchness on offense, being able to move the ball. I like what I saw Baker in the offense last week. Mike Evans looked good last week. Bucky Urban looked alright last week. He did what he could against some tough matchups. So I'm going to lean towards the Bucs in this one, 24-21. I'm kind of expecting this one to have like more offensive moments. I'm kind of expecting this game to go both ways, where we see offensive moments, defensive moments, turnovers. I can see both teams turning over the ball once, and in the crunch time situation, like in the fourth quarter or something like that. But which team do I trust more? If this game does go to overtime, which I can absolutely see it, I'm going to trust the Bucs more in this situation. So I'm going to lean towards Tampa Bay here, 24-21, just because I do think Baker Mayfield would just lean him down the field and score. But I was not really that entertained when I saw the Texans. If the Texans offense maybe scored like 17, 20 points I was talking about earlier, then I probably would go with the Texans here, but I'm just not going for it. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I'm not surprised that they are underdogs about this game, but I go for it. I'm going to go Tampa Bay, and over 42.5. I feel pretty good about that because even though they do have good defensive moments, I do think I think this game is going to remain close the whole time, meaning both teams are going to have to score points to get the edge over each other. So I feel good about the over, but like I said, crunch time situations, who I trust more right now, I trust the Texans more, even though it's on the road. I trust the Bucs more, even though it's on the road. I'm going to lean towards Tampa Bay. And last but not least, we have our last game of the week. We got the Chargers going into the Raiders. I got the Chargers winning this game 23-17. Listen, I think this game will be close overall, and probably what the spread is talking about here. The Chargers only being a 3.5 point favorite here. But listen, I love what I saw from the Chargers last week. They absolutely went out there and diced up the Chiefs. Justin Herbert looked phenomenal last week. I'll admit it. Yes, he looked phenomenal last week. Their offense looked good. Like McCoy looked good. The receivers looked good. And their defense looked about the Chargers defense expected. Not the most complete dominance, but they did just enough to hedge out the Chiefs. And I kind of like what I saw out of their defense while they're in the process of doing that. So I'm going to give the Chargers a lot of credit here. When you look at the Raiders didn't look that bad either. They beat the Patriots. They probably outworked the Patriots the whole time in that game. They looked somewhat apart last week. And I'll give the Raiders some credit, man. Like I said, I don't think they played bad. I think they did good enough to win. But yeah, I'm going to lean towards the Chargers in this game. Like I said, the Chargers, even though the Raiders did look pretty good last week, I think the Chargers looked a lot better. So, in this game, I can see this one going either way. I can see this being a defensive game or another good offensive game, because both teams do have good offensive firepower onto their rosters. But this is it's kind of like this is the same situation as the Bucs and Texans, but the opposite way around. Like I said, I kind of expect that game to be. Not the Bucs and Texans, the Falcons and Minnesota. Like I said, I kind of expect Minnesota and Falcons to be like more of the offensive side of the book. I'm kind of expecting this game to be more towards the defensive side. So, because the Raiders defense showed some good stuff too with the Chargers. So, I'm gonna say this is a defensive game, but like I said, the team I trust more right now is the Chargers, led by Justin Herbert. They get the job done 23-17. A pretty entertaining showing here. Under 4.5. I think I'm feeling good about that, because I don't think this will be like a score out game. I think this is going to be a pretty close, entertaining game in general. And then Chargers minus 3.5. I feel pretty good about that. Maybe that does scare me a little bit, but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the Chargers. Even though Geno Smith looked pretty good last week with the Raiders, Austin Genting looked good. Brock Bowers, I think he's inclined for a really good season, but I just feel like I have to go with the Chargers. Vlad McConaughey, Justin Herbert, all that stuff. I think Chargers will be able to produce a much offense, and it's kind of like the same situation as the Bucs and Texans. Like both teams are going to be first. With who do I trust more? I trust the road team more, so I'm going to go with the Chargers. But yeah, like I said, that's going to do it for this video today. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for me. Make sure to join the Discord. Hopefully you guys do enjoy the content. Make sure you guys do come out tonight for Thursday Night Football. I'm pretty sure we will be live in that game unless that lead holds. And we'll see you guys there. This is BigNation.com. Peace out. Stay safe. See y'all next time. Goodbye.